You know, our house burned down a while back in the San Diego fires, and Margie and I were both in Florida. She was at a conference in Orlando, and I was in Naples playing golf with a whole bunch of old Cornell buddies. We get together every year and play, and I got up a little before 7 and put on my cell phone to see if there's any messages, and there was a message from Scott saying, "Mom, Dad, I don't know where you are, but Matt and I just had to evacuate our house, and we're down in Pomerado Road looking up, and there's flames coming out of our place, and I think yours is gone too, and it's just awful." And so that was my greeting for the day, and so then I called you, Margie, and what was your reaction when I told you?
I thought you were kidding.
Yeah.
I actually did. Ken has a very sick sense of humor, and that's exactly the kind of thing that he would do. So I actually thought he was kidding. We had talked to my assistant the night before, and she had gone over to get our dog, and because she misunderstood whether I was going to be gone, and so she had gone to get our dog, but the fire was 35 miles away.
What was your main concern as you called?
Well, we didn't really know for sure if our house was gone. The reports were, but nobody was allowed into the neighborhood. And there were a lot of things circulating on the internet, addresses and things like that. And frankly, I was much sadder for our son than I was for ourselves. They had just finished about a 9 or 10 month remodeling of their house, but they had done it with such love and such care, and they were bringing their family into this, and they had just moved in, and it was a happy house that they had created for their family, and I was actually more sad for them than I was for ourselves. We had had 25 wonderful years in our house, and I loved our house. We had made our house exactly what we wanted, but that was a big difference, 25 wonderful years versus the beginning of this family's life in there. And so I said to Ken, if one house has to go, I hope it's ours, because I would feel actually better about that than knowing for sure that Scott's house had gone.
And that was really our prayer together that night.
It was, actually.
And, I'm so emotional. The next day, I'm driving after we had played golf because they said we couldn't come back into town. And there's Scott on the phone. My cell phone rings, and he says, "Dad, you won't believe it, but I'm standing in the middle of our living room, and our house is saved. And the front mat had burned. Some towels in the back porch had burned." And so I said, "Praise the Lord," and I started to cry and laugh. And I said, "Scott, that's exactly what Mom and I had prayed." And Phil Hodges was with me, and he started to lead like Jesus with me. And we were right by the beach. And as we, got off the phone with Scott, Phil pulled over the side, and he and I ran up and down the beach and said, "Lord, you're unbelievable," and he has this picture of me going like this, and I just, learned our houses. And Scott said, he said, "Dad, your place is gone." And here we're running up the beach and praise the Lord. I mean, because it was a miracle.
There's always a shock initially when you realize what's happened. And I remember going shopping with Debbie a few days after the fire, after we got back, and I couldn't buy anything. I didn't know what to buy. I was just in shock. And so I think that God protects you in a situation like that. And then Debbie was like an angel anyway.
This is our daughter.
She took over. She literally started making decisions for us, and Scott as well. And so, and my brother helped us to buy cars. We're not used to receiving, but in that particular situation, we needed to receive, and we were able to do that. We also had dear friends who had lost their house about 10 years before, so they knew what we were going through, and we actually went away for a couple days with them, and they not only had they survived a fire, But they also were able to listen to us and hear the initial things that we were aware of. So they were able to identify with the things that we had lost. And the first thing you think about are photographs. I had a computer. I'm an amateur photographer, and my computer had 22,000 photographs on it from many trips that we had taken, and of course I had them backed up with 2 hard drives sitting right next to the computer, which didn't help at all.
Because you didn't think about the house, you thought about the
I
computer
thought about
crashing.
The computer crashing. We had 6,700 books. Nobody needs 6,700 books. So we had a lot of things that maybe we didn't need, but we had a lot of things that I loved. But it's all the things that you would collect in 25 years. A lot of things from traveling. Obviously, things when you've lost them, they kind of sort into what do you miss the most and what do you miss not as much.
We have some neat stuff from my dad, who was an admiral in the Navy.
Right.
I had his 2 silver stars and his sword when he graduated from the Naval Academy.
Right. We had.
Marge was saying about we needed to learn to receive. That was a big learning, wasn't it? Because we're givers, but my mother always said it's better to give than receive, but somebody's got to receive, and so we had a lot of people that reached out to us, and one was, I think, Betsy Blee. That was so touching. She was one of the top trainers at Pfizer, and she's an ex-Marine, and she called and wanted to know what class my dad was at the Naval Academy, and she found out that he was class of 24, so 10 days later I get in the mail an old 1924 copy of my father's yearbook. I mean, that
was a very sweet thing.
Yeah.